There we go. Very loud ding. So in just a second, Tim, people are hearing that welcome message. So they're being welcomed to the event. And Tim, you are are ready to go.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with the membership of the Arizona Education Association, American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, firefighters, laborers, and all of our retirees. My name is Tim Hill. I'm the Vice President of the Phoenix Firefighters Local, and I'll be your moderator for this evening's discussion. An important discussion about the importance of voting no on Proposition 487, a measure that will destroy retirement benefits for all City of Phoenix employees, including both civilian and sworn. All of them will lose important pension benefits and cost Phoenix taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Our speakers tonight include Steve Berline, President of the United Phoenix Firefighters, Andrew Morrill, President of the Arizona Education Association, and Louise Schmidt, President of one of the two ASPE locals here in Phoenix. We will begin in just a moment, and we're excited to have you join us. But before we begin, a few quick points to make. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people. So please just stay on the line, and we'll be hearing from our speakers shortly. Also, we want to hear from you. If you would like to ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question. Again, welcome for those who are just joining us. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall about the importance of voting no on Proposition 487, a City of Phoenix ballot measure that will destroy retirement benefits for all City of Phoenix employees and cost Phoenix taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm Tim Hill with the Firefighters, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. We're going to begin in just a moment, so thanks for joining us. This is really an exciting process. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people, so please stay on the line, and we'll hear from our speakers very shortly. If you want to ask a question, please press 0 at any time during this event. Again, please press 0 at any time to ask a question. And with further delay, here's our first speaker, Steve Berline, who's President of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. Steve?
Thank you, Tim. Well, as Tim said, my name is Steve Berline. I am the President of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. We are in the battle of our career currently with Proposition 487, which is a dark money, out-of-state funded proposition funded primarily by the Free Enterprise Club and supported by the Citizens for Pension Reform. And we are in the battle with our brothers and sisters from LIUNA, ASME, and multiple Phoenix Police Department organizations and our retirees. This proposition amends the Phoenix City Charter by initiative petition. And their ultimate goal is to put everybody into a defined benefit from a defined benefit plan into a defined contribution plan. We are seeing these attacks across the country. Phoenix has become a new ground zero, similar to what has happened in Wisconsin. And we are asking, please, all of our citizens to vote no on Proposition 487. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. One of the things that we're going to do throughout this call is take a couple of polls, ask a couple of questions. It's important, I think, to know what the membership knows and doesn't know about the 487 campaign. So we'd like to ask everyone to please partake in the poll. And our first question is, have you heard about the No on 487 campaign? Please press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, or press 3 if you're unsure. And again, we want to remind everyone, if you have a question for our speakers from our 3 locals, to please press 0 for a question. So at this time, while we're waiting for more folks to call in, we have a question. I'm sorry, I have to read this a little bit here. Okay, so we have a question from Robert, in Phoenix. Robert, you want to go ahead with your question?
My question is, how can the city take away a benefit that was negotiated in lieu of pay raises? I'm talking about specifically deferred comp, which certainly doesn't equate to a second pension, which is what they're claiming that it is. It's not a second pension, and it certainly wasn't ever presented as a second pension. How can they just strip it away, especially when some of the city council members that are on the board today voted to give this benefit to these hardworking men and women that work for the fire department?
That's a great question, Robert. Steve, can you go ahead and answer how the proposition would take away deferred comp?
Yes, I can. Robert, thank you very much. And this is really what the most glaring issue about this proposition. It is so poorly written. It is so dirty. We know they had further intentions than what they're alluding to. But the judges are going to decide exactly how it plays out in the end. I agree with you. We receive those benefits in lieu of higher wages, and we started years ago. Police officers and firefighters, we don't receive Social Security. We have to have that benefit. If they were to take that away from us, we would be in serious trouble. So we agree with you. We think it would be illegal if they were to do that. But if 487 passes, we're going to be leaving it up to a judge to decide.
Thanks, Steve. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be asking some questions, taking some brief polls throughout this. And our first question was, have you heard about the No on 487 campaign? And I'm happy to say, according to our poll results right now, 92% answered yes. So that tells me that all of you as members are paying attention and are listening to the debate and are getting information from your unions. So that's great news. Again, I want to remind for those who are just joining the call that if you have a question for our speakers, that you can press 0 and your question will get answered. At this time, I'd like to introduce Andrew Morrell. Andrew is the president of the Arizona Education Association, which represents teachers and education professionals throughout Arizona, of course, including the city of Phoenix. So, Andrew, welcome, and we look forward to your remarks.
Tim, thanks very much, and Steve, thanks to you as well. I'm very proud to join with you both tonight in a message of clear opposition to Prop 487. The AEA has a little over 4,000 members who live in the Phoenix area and are able to vote down this dark money, really a solution in search of a problem. The fact is that for educators on this call, this is like hearing gunfire in the neighborhood next to yours. We have to pay attention to this issue as educators, even though Prop 487 does not directly attack the Arizona State retirement system. The ASRS is a domino that the Free Enterprise Club and other interests that are backing 487 want to fall as well. So while it's the firefighters and police officers and the city of Phoenix employees today with Prop 487, what we know is that this is a bellwether issue, and that if those who are backing this are successful with the city of Phoenix, they're going to bring this to the state of Arizona, and they're going to come after the state retirement system and the other retirement systems and change them, devalue them, defund them, and destroy them in the interests of a whole lot of political agenda that really has nothing to do with the interests of firefighters, nothing to do with the interests of police officers, nothing to do with the interests of educators. But we've got to join in this opposition campaign. We have got to vote down 487 because it's one vote away from the same kind of tactic coming to undermine the thousands of folks participating in the state retirement system. You've probably seen this in the Arizona Republic time and time again. Every year there seems to be a rhetorical campaign against these public employee retirement systems. A lot of false claims go out about how they're shaky and existing on a shoestring. The fact is that both the firefighters and police officers have worked on their own retirement systems, have plans to make them stronger. The Arizona State Retirement System is one of the best managed and best funded in the country and is very stable. But that's not what the folks that are backing Prop 487 want you to think about. And that's not what they're telling voters. There's a huge misinformation campaign, in addition to, as Steve said, the ballot language just being very badly written. This is a direct threat, and we as educators cannot stand by and should not stand by when we see a threat like this to other folks, other employees, and we know that it's right around the corner from our own. And that's why AEA is joining with the others on the call, with AFSCME, with firefighters and police officers and the other groups representing the City of Phoenix employees to vehemently oppose Prop 487. Tim?
Thanks, Andrew. I think that wraps that piece of it up very nicely. While the direct targets of this particular initiative are City of Phoenix employees, these super rich out-of-state folks that are trying to get this done have tried to get it done in other places throughout the country and would like to get it done here so that they can then pass it in the rest of the state, the other pension systems. So right now we're going to ask another poll question, and we'd ask everybody to participate again. And the question may seem obvious, but we really want to see where the membership across the city is at. So for the second question, can we count on you to vote no on Proposition 487? And again, please press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 if you're undecided and you need more information on the initiative. So it's time for another question from the audience. We have some very good questions, and we're going to go to Joey in Phoenix. Joey, go ahead.
I was wondering, we put as a part of our retirement, we put money into a public safety retirement for as many years as we have, and then can we legally be? What happens to our money? Are we forced to go into a different pension, or do we? What happens to that?
Steve, you want to take that since it's public safety?
Yeah, well, public safety, that's what their plan is. And when we talk about losing our death and disability benefits, if you're not participating in PSPRS, of course you don't get the benefits, death and disability benefits that go along with that plan. So then they try to split us into two different pension systems. It's going to cost the city $600 million over 20 years. Again, it's one of those issues that's going to be left up to a judge to decide in the end.
Yeah, that is one of the difficulties with this. Again, that it's so poorly written as conflicting language. The language in the initiative says the city may only pay into what will be its new 401k plan. So anything could happen from a judge ordering them back in to the money that's in PSPRS being stranded and running out at some point once they spend all the money that's there. That's why it's so important to get out, knock on doors, and vote no, so we can kill this and we don't even have to worry about a judge's decision. That'll take care of it. Again, if you have questions.
Tim, can I jump in?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things we've found, because the Arizona State Retirement System has been the focus of some of these attacks in the past also, and as the caller kind of hints at, there's just so much that is unknown about how this would play out, which is what prompted the post on AZ Central today, why take the risk on Prop 487, vote no. When you've got a ballot piece written this badly that leaves the kind of questions that the caller is hinting at, you clearly don't have a ballot piece written with any middle-class worker's interest in mind. The second point that Steve alluded to is that in the transitions that the switch, the conversion would require if this passes, ironically, the city, or in our case, the state of Arizona, would spend far more money just in the transition than is claimed to be the cost of maintaining the current system. So this will represent a larger burden to taxpayers in Phoenix, and still leave a grave amount of doubt as to how the plan would actually be operationalized. Two good reasons to vote no on 487.
Very good. Again, if you have a question, please press 0, and we'll do our best to get to it. This time, I'd like to introduce our third speaker, Luis Schmidt. Luis is president of one of the 2 ASME locals, which represent city workers. Luis, welcome.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to the callers, and thank you to everyone else on the call. Again, this is a grassroots effort. It does affect everybody. It does affect all the public servants, sworn and non-sworn. Again, one of the key points that keeps getting missed by the yes side is that in 2013, the voters of Phoenix approved a pension reform. It was real, honest pension reform that was backed by our firefighters. So this pension reform that was just passed in 2013 saved the city, the taxpayers, over $600 million over the next 20 years. It's going to save over $600 million. One of the big campaign slogans for the yes side is pension spiking, pension spiking. The city council just outlawed the pension spiking practice this spring with all the new contracts. All the different labor groups came to the table, and ultimately at the very end, the council and the bargaining units agreed to stop the pension spiking practice, saving an additional $230 million. So if you combine the 2013 reform plus the additional reform this year by the city council, we're looking at over $850 million in reforms that were done. Proposition 487, like Tim said earlier, Tim and Steve, is not only going to cost the taxpayers more money, but it's going to completely stop all those savings that haven't even had a chance to be seeing it. This proposition is going to erase all those savings that we just voted on, and it's going to cost the city more money. The other side is saying, this data is information that the city put together, but no, this was an independent analysis that was done by Cherion, the company Cherion and Siegel. They did an independent analysis of 487, and they reported to the council, this is how much it's going to cost you, and this is how much it's going to cost, ultimately when it costs the council, it's going to cost the taxpayers. If Proposition 487 is passed, the analysis said it's going to cost each family about $700 for each family in Phoenix. That's a lot. When the city just faced a $38 million shortfall this year in the budget, we were looking at closing down community centers, reducing some staff on fire trucks and police officers, and that was only with the $38 million shortfall. What are we going to do as Phoenicians when we have to take on this proposition? If it passes, that's going to cost a minimum of $350 million. The citizens can't afford this proposition. But like everybody else on the call has said, this is an out-of-state dark money group that is coming into Phoenix. They tried this in Cincinnati, Wisconsin, and in Tucson. But over and over again, working middle-class families are getting together, putting grassroots efforts together like we're doing this. And we're knocking on doors, we're talking to voters, and ultimately that's what's going to make the difference. They have expensive campaign ads, misleading ads that are telling the public that public safety is not affected. But we as employees, as citizens, as voters, we have the grassroots campaign. And this does affect, like we said, sworn and the non-sworn. On the non-sworn, it's going to, we're looking at about a 14% cut, for employees, if this gets passed. And this is on top of the concessions that we've been in for 6 years to help our community. Our retirees retire on fixed incomes. This is going to affect our retirees as well. Our retirees will lose anywhere from $300 up to $700 a month based on with this Prop 487 passes. A couple callers asked the question earlier, well, how can they do this? How can they do this? At the end, this was a poorly written initiative. This is not the city council doing it. This is the voters, allegedly, demanding change because it was an outside group that came in. But ultimately, like Tim and Steve had said, this will have to end up in court, and it's going to cost the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars, because ultimately, at the end, these dark money groups, they're here to take they don't really care about the retirement security of Phoenix. They don't care about costing more deficits. What they care about is converting this into a 401k system so we can be like other cities. The city of LA spent over $200 million last year paying management fees. They spent more on management fees than they did to fix their own roads. So Proposition 487 is bad for no matter what kind of public servant you are. It's bad, and it's going to affect everyone. And we're asking the public to vote no, to stay informed, and to keep knocking on doors. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Luis. At this time, we'd like to ask another question, if everyone will participate in the poll again. Will you commit to talking to your friends, family, or neighbors about why they should vote no on 487? Again, please press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and 3 if they're unsure. And again, if you have a question, please press 0 so we can put you in the queue and get your question answered. We've had a lot of questions so far this evening about the role that the courts may play in this. So right now we'd like to go to Mike and Levine. Mike, can you go ahead with your question?
Hey, Mike. First of all, I'd like to thank you and Tim and Steve for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering what the legal recourse. I know this would be ideal to keep out of the courts and just have it fail. But with the advertisements that the Yes on 47 has put on, clearly being misleading, that it says in the preamble it will not affect police and fire, but in the ballot language it clearly does. Is there anything we can do about that?
There is, if I understand and I'll ask our speakers to jump in with their opinions, but as far as how the initiative is worded, there's nothing we can do about the initiative. In some states, for example, California, you can actually challenge the language in initiative before it gets to the voters. That's only possible in Arizona under a couple of circumstances, so we can't challenge the verbiage. What would be challenged is, depending on which unit or which union you belong to, your concerns and your challenges would be different because we're in different retirement systems. For example, I think all of us would go to court and say that this would be a diminishment or an impairment of our pension rights under the state constitution. There might be another avenue to go to federal court for a violation of the contract clause. There might be cases that have to do with the health insurance and the deferred comp as well. One of the few things that they were smart about in this initiative is they included what's called a severability clause. So say we go in and we sue over the PSPRS piece of it, and that gets resolved in our favor. That doesn't mean that it necessarily gets resolved in favor of the members of the City of Phoenix Employees Retirement System, or that the health insurance issues are resolved. So there are avenues to go to court. At the end of the day, those decisions are made by the person with the black robe, so it's a certain roll of the dice. But certainly if this passes, all of the unions will be engaged in legal action on behalf of their membership. Do any of the other speakers want to jump in on that?
Yeah, this is
Well,
Steve.
I'll jump in real quick. The ballot language, that is what it is. I mean, in San Jose in 2012, there was similar ballot language that was passed, and like what Tim just said, the state constitution protects some of the public, it protects the public pension system. In San Jose, we're still in court over that from 2012. The voters passed some of the stuff, and the judge just ruled earlier this year that some of the stuff that they passed was unconstitutional. So some of the provisions were allowed to proceed, but other ones were not. And at the end of the day, you don't get there, like what Tim said, in front of that judge until you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only us, as workers and union members, but also the city and the taxpayers get burned by all the money that has to be spent on legal fees.
This is Andrew.
Thanks, Luis.
This is Andrew with the AEA. We fought this battle Several years ago, the legislature, in an attempt to save money, changed the 50% split of employee and employer contributions in our own Arizona State retirement system, and changed it to a 53% contribution from employees and a 47% from the district, the employers. And then they swept that savings back into the state general fund. The previous speaker is correct. We did prevail in the courts, but it took a long time and a lot of money. And, you know, when you've got a ballot piece that's written as badly as 487 is, you shouldn't have to first, suffer from the passage of a badly written bill and then try to correct it through the court system. We ended up prevailing because the Arizona Constitution was clear, but you don't always know that's going to happen. So it's better and much more timely and much more effective to send a clear message and just vote this down now.
Very good point. The best way to do it is to go out, knock on doors, and get this killed. Okay, I think that we want to ask another poll question. By the way, fantastic results on the poll question. Will you commit to talking to others about why they should vote no? 92% of you are willing to talk to others to make sure that they vote no. And a great follow-up to that is for our next and our final poll question is if you're willing to talk to folks, can we now count on you to join us for Canvass? If we can count on you to go and knock on doors, please press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're undecided about that. And again, if you have a question, please don't forget to press 0, and we will do our best to get to your question. We will get questions answered. So our next question is from Catherine. Catherine?
Hi,
Catherine,
good
are you
evening.
on the line? Thank you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm from the Teachers Classroom Association in the Phoenix Union High School District. And I'd like to ask what consequences have been affected for union members in the states where this has been in effect.
That's a really great question. Steve, do you want to take that one?
I'm sorry, Catherine, I didn't hear the question.
Catherine's question has this passed in other states or cities, and how has it affected the membership?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. As Luis kind of alluded to, it absolutely has. Other jurisdictions have converted from a defined benefit to defined contribution plans. Then they end up having to fund both plans, which is incredibly expensive, and most of them are in the process of going back to the defined benefit plans. And of course, it affects all city services. It affects union members. Now you're talking about lower wages and fewer benefits, and it's a trickle-down effect actually to everybody involved.
And I'll follow up on that too. In Alaska, they went to this system, and they went from the defined benefit to the defined contribution. And what that does, just like what Steve just said, it skyrockets the unfunded liability. Right now, the pension system in Phoenix, what it is, you have to look at it like a roller coaster that just keeps rotating. New employees come and retirees get off, but it keeps moving, and it moves at a steady pace. What happens is that these dark money people want to stop that, the roller coaster, the Ferris wheel from turning. They want to stop it from turning. And all that, what's going to happen here is that you will no longer have employees paying into this system. And what that's going to mean, the reason it's going to cost the taxpayers more money because the general fund is going to have to pay for all this, which is going to be very expensive. And like Steve just said, it's going to affect the services. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect every public service that we rely on.
Thank you. Good questions. Let's keep them going. Again, a reminder that if you have a question, please press 0, and we will get to your question. Our next caller with a question is Maggie. Maggie, welcome. Actually, I think that we may have a little bit of a problem with connecting Maggie. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Troy. Welcome, Troy. Please ask your question.
Thank you. I kind of have a two-part question here: is how did 487 get on the ballot, and how is it going to affect the City of Phoenix taxpayers?
That's a great question. Luis, you want to take that
yes.
one?
Yes.
It had to do with both
yes.
How does it affect taxpayers, and again, how did it actually get on the ballot?
Well, here's how it got on the ballot. Last year, I mean, I laugh, but please, it's not a laughing matter. Last year, we had out-of-state petition gatherers come into Phoenix, and they were at libraries, at post offices, at grocery stores, telling people that this was going to help protect firefighters. You sign this petition, it's going to protect our firefighters and police officers. Overwhelmingly, of course, the people are going to sign that because we believe in protecting our public safety. So, in the end, this dark money group collected 54,000 signatures. Okay, and then here's the part that many people don't know: they paid $1.50 for every signature that they got. And in the end, after they, and all that was paid for by out-of-state dark money groups who don't reveal themselves. They call it that this was a citizens initiative. It's not. It's an out-of-state dark money group that spent all this money to get it on the, to force the city council to look at it, and they have to by law. The city clerk, they were only able to validate I think 35,000 signatures. So it goes to show you how many invalid signatures they had. So once they had the signatures, the city council was forced to put it on the ballot, and that's when they got, that's when they just discussed the ballot language, and that's where we're at today. But again, this was an outside group that came in. They tried this in Cincinnati, and they failed. They tried this in Tucson just last year, and with the help of our firefighters, we were able to defeat this in Tucson. But this is how it got in here on the Phoenix ballot. Again, this is not the city council. The city council doesn't have the option to not put it on. By law, they're supposed to. This is technically a citizens initiative, so they had to do their due diligence and send it to the voters, to the ballot, and that's where we're at today. And again, this is the Free Enterprise Club, dark money group, who in the end, all the people who donate to them are the ones who are going to benefit if they get their way, if Proposition 487 is passed. And I hope that answers your question on how it got on the ballot.
And if I could add, Troy, they literally bust in people from out of state to collect signatures. They hired them to collect signatures.
Yeah, they had they picked them up in the morning. They stayed at a particular couple hotels. A bus picked them up every morning and dropped them off at strategic locations around town. And then in the afternoon or in the evening, they picked them up and sent them back to their hotel. So they did this for months and months. And I mean, just look at the expense of housing petition gatherers and paying them, and ultimately all that is going to be at the expense of taxpayers.
And this is Andrew. It's also just important to remember that when these folks are gathering signatures, they're not telling anywhere near the real story of what a ballot proposition like this would do. They say something that sounds very, benevolent. They'll use terminology to hide the true intent. They might even be so deceptive as to say, this will guarantee benefits that the city can afford for police and fire. Telling anybody the truth does not serve their interest in gathering those signatures.
Great answers, guys. I think one of the things I want to talk about right now is our last poll question was, can we count on you to join us for Canvass? And fantastically, 55% of you said yes. Other 20% said either no or unsure. And while we're all very thrilled that over half the folks would come out and knock on doors to act in their own interest, the way we're going to win this thing, you've seen the TV ads, you've seen the mail, you've seen the literature, you've seen the online media, but the way that we're really going to win this is if everybody joins the literally hundreds and hundreds of firefighters, laborers, and AFSCME members that have been out there knocking on doors, making direct person-to-person contact with the voters. So while 55% is fantastic, let's see if we can take that up a notch and get it close to 100%. Okay, so our next caller is Floyd, and Floyd has a very important question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Floyd. I do work for the city of Phoenix, and the problem that I'm at, what I want to find out is, I have developed a disease, and I'm going on medical disability. I want to find out how does this affect this. I mean, because if it's going to affect retirement, I mean, I'm going to have to retire because of a medical condition that I developed. And I want to know how this is going to affect my, like say, if it's going to take away money from me, because I'm going to be on a fixed income for the rest of my life. I want to know how this is going to affect it.
Yeah, that's very important, and it's critical. And, one of the things that, of course, the other side doesn't want to talk about is a majority of city workers, certainly not all, but a majority of city workers are blue-collar workers. And there's a lot of injuries. I know on our side, on the fire department side, we injure a third of our workforce every year. So that's one thing the other side doesn't want to talk about, is how this affects real people, real working families, and the effects. And Andrew, I know that you don't work for the city, but for those that are listening, maybe this is a way to answer the question and talk about how it would affect members in ASRS as well, because the two systems, COPERS and ASRS, are administered maybe not exactly the same, but very closely.
Well, anytime you have a case where you're weakening the system through any of several variables, what ends up happening is to maintain the same benefits, other folks are going to pay more. I can only speak for the Arizona State Retirement System, which, like the public safety retirement system, has had participants come in and try to manage it a little bit, strengthen it for the long haul. That's what these folks don't want you to know, and they don't want voters to know, is that we're already taking steps to make these retirement systems sustainable and strong. And so in our case, we've had folks come in and try to say that the system was not well managed, it was not well funded, and then suggest that a transition of some kind to defined contribution was in the best interest in the long run. And they've even suggested like a two-tier system, where folks in the system right now would maintain their benefits, and then new people coming in would go through a new system, the defined contribution. The problem is you're still weakening the pool of contributors, of people paying into the overall system that keeps it sustainable and strong. Tim, I don't know if that answers exactly the point you were addressing.
Yeah, I think it does. Luis, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes.
Since you directly represent this individual?
Yes, Yeah, thank you, Tim. Here's how it will affect you. You said you're contemplating retirement, whether it's medical or not. You're contemplating retirement. Well, here's how it's going to affect you. You get a monthly, for your insurance, you get an additional assistance. Right now, the retirees are having to pay $1,800 a month for family insurance. In it's contractual. The city's contractually obligated to assist you, a member, by giving them like $300 up to $600 for if it's a couple. But you that money that you get set aside, the additional assistance, $300 to go towards your $1,800 insurance payment, that is going to be that's going to be stripped away from this. It's also going to change this new pension, the Prop 487. It also changes the years of service. You understand right now they count the criteria, how they do the number. It's the highest 3 in the last 10 years. With this one, it's going to be the highest 3 in the last 5 years, which is going to diminish your pension. Right now, what you're having is you have the city leaders themselves are bailing on this. The aviation director announced his retirement. The head prosecutor for the city announced their retirement. We lost the financial director earlier this year. So one by one, these people at the top don't have faith in either the judges or this initiative from the yes side, where they're leaving. And ultimately, at the end, this not only affects your family, because you are going to be on a fixed income, but this also affects the quality of service. When you have employees right now who are going to an employee orientation, and they're paying right now 14% of their pension towards their of their income towards their pension, and they're deciding, it's not worth for me to work here. They can't afford to work in Phoenix, and ultimately that's going to mean lower service, quality service that we provide the citizens. So this will affect you negatively, and that's why a lot of people are retiring right now. We had over 200 people retire in June and July, and right now there's over 1,500 that are eligible to retire from the city. And retirement office has been having the city council chamber is packed with people to have meetings about retirement because people don't have faith in sometimes in the judges, but also they don't want to take the chance. They don't want to leave this up to a judge and wait years because they know that if this does get implemented, it will take effect, soon, and they don't want to put their faith in the courts.
Thanks, Luis. These are all great questions. Again, if you have a question, please don't forget to press 0 and ask your question, and we will do our very best to get to it. We've had some fantastic questions and answers tonight. So I think now we're going to go to Mike. Mike has a little bit of a different question. It's not so much about benefits as it is about campaign. Mike?
How do you do? I assume the only individuals listening are city workers, police officers, firefighters, and educators. But since campaign season arrived, voters have been bombarded with mail flyers, TV campaigns and ads, and emails, even from a city council member, all with the same message: vote yes on 487 with the reasons why. My question is, aside from the few strategies presented here tonight, what can be done to inform the mass of voters to hear the other side of the story and to encourage them to see the falsehoods presented and to vote no on 487?
Thanks for your. We don't want to give away. I don't think anybody on the call wants us to give away the recipe of what we're doing to fight back and campaign, because with massive phone calls like this, there always could be leakers that could come in and listen to the campaign plan. But I can assure you that there's been a very aggressive and very vigorous campaign. And I'd like to ask Steve to comment on any part of that he'd like to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question, Mike. Hey, look, we are the little guys. We are the middle class. We're lower middle class employees. We don't make a lot of money, but we have a hell of a fight in front of us. So this has just been a massive, low budget, very low budget, grassroots effort. And as transparent as any campaign can possibly be, the No on 487 campaign is transparent. We are citizens. We are taxpayers. Yes, we are employees. But you know who we are. And the other side, we have no idea who's funding that campaign. We do know with a phone call or two, they can bring in a couple $1 million. And to be quite honest with you, the little people out there, they can't compete with that kind of corporate money. We'll never be able to compete. But the one thing that is more valuable than their money is a true, honest effort, going door to door, talking to your neighbors. And even more powerful than that is voting, showing up and casting your ballot. That ballot is more valuable. That vote is more valuable than any dark money that come in from out of state. Thanks for the question, Mike.
And I can back a little bit. I'll back that up a little bit, Tim. Mike, a lot of these mailers that you were receiving, they were from the it was called Save Our Future Now group. So I took the time. I got the address that was on the mailer, and I went to that specific address and wanted to see who was sending it. Who is this Save Our Future Now? I'd like to meet them. I'd like to talk to them to get their viewpoints. But unfortunately, what I found was a mailbox. It was at a mailboxes, etc. And all it was just one little, 4x4 little mailbox for the campaign. And ultimately, that's what they do. They hide behind. There's no transparency behind this. And ultimately, as a voter, you can go to no1487.com to get more information. You can also read the literature piece that's attached to on the ballot. That not on the ballot, but on the voter guide. It tells you Mayor Stanton's opposed to this. Some of the council members, a couple state senators, and it's grassroots people that you can identify, and you can like what Steve just said. They're actual people. All these other secret organizations, they're hidden behind out of state dark money groups.
Absolutely. So we're going to wind up the questions here a little bit, but we have time for one more question. And again, it's a little bit different as well. It's not directly about benefits. It's more about politics. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Debbie. Debbie, welcome to the Teletown Hall, and please ask us your question.
Well, what I would like to know is why nobody is calling Sal DiCiccio out. He's the one telling the public that city employees make $100,000 a year. Not even with their benefits do they make that. And why is he supporting 487? And a third part to that, if I might add, is why is it the assistant city mayor gets a $68,000 a year increase, while employees are on furlough days, holiday give back, 3% pay cuts over the next 3 years. I don't get that. Why is nobody calling them out on that?
I'm going to try to answer that question, and if any of our speakers, when I'm done, want to jump on to the end of it, please do. But what we're trying to do is we are trying to win a campaign. When we talk about other elected officials, when we talk about the vice mayor or Councilman DiCiccio, that's what they want us to do. They want us to get mad and huff and puff and make it a personal battle and get off message. Our message, which we know connects with the voters, is this costs the city hundreds of millions of dollars, and it will eliminate death and disability pensions for public safety personnel and end pensions for all city workers. When we make that direct connection as city workers to the voters, we know that connects. If we spend time, money, or effort doing those other things, then we lose. So it's not that we don't want to call them out. It's not that we don't want to put them on the carpet. But remember, the job here is to save retirement security for thousands and thousands of city workers, city retirees, and their families. But it is a great question. Yeah.
And I'll jump on top of that. About calling them out. Our energy is, like what Tim just said, is focused on being on the grassroots campaign, but also you have to remember the Arizona Republic knows, we've been telling them, we've had meetings with their reporters over and over about the true people behind this, the terrible consequences, but at the end of the day, the Arizona Republic has been saying for the last 2 years how bad pensions are in Arizona, how bad, and they're not going to, unfortunately, they're not going to change their tune now. I sent them a video because I went to another address, for one of these groups, and when I found it was on the 4th floor on 24th Street in Camelback, the whole floor was vacant. There was nobody there. So this group, this so-called citizens group that was behind this, a lot of the TV commercials, I went to their offices, and it was just a vacant floor on 24th Street and in Camelback. But they don't, the Arizona Republic is not going to report that because they've been saying how terrible pensions are. And unfortunately, you talk about, the vice mayor getting this or getting that. That's the sad part, is that, there's a few at the top who reap these benefits. Sal DiCiccio voted for the largest pension spike ever when he voted for David Cavazos. And then earlier this year, he voted to approve pension spiking again. And yet, he turns around and says we need to stop pension spiking. And you're right, the employees have sacrificed. They're doing furloughs over and over again, 6 years straight. And it's unfortunate, but again, the middle-class workers, we don't make the rules. We don't make the policies. We just have to live by the terrible consequences of our policymakers and our council members. Our council members only have to serve one term, and they get a full pension for life, one term, while the new pension reform that just was passed in 2013, it changes that. We used to have the rule of 80, which meant years of service plus age had to equal 80. With the pension reform in 2013, that rule is now 87. So that means you have to be, the service and your age has to equal 87 before you can retire. And we're going to have an older workforce, but, they make changes that they themselves aren't even affected. And I even confronted Sal. I said, Sal, when are you going to do something to change your own pension? And all he said was, I sent a letter to the state. But again, he's a hypocrite, and our energy has to be focused on what Tim and Steve have said, knocking on doors, because that's what's going to make the difference in this.
Thank you. This has been a great conference call. I want to give each of our speakers a big thank you for joining us to help educate the membership and answer their questions. So I'd like to give each of them an opportunity to make a couple of closing remarks, and we'll start with our president of the firefighters, Steve Bernlein. Steve, is there anything you want to leave the group with this evening?
Thank you, Tim. I would just like to reiterate, We are faced with a dark money initiative in Prop 487. It's very dangerous, poorly written, and if it passes, it will cost the city millions of dollars just to litigate, and then over $600 million over the next 20 years. It's disastrous. It amends the City of Phoenix Charter, and police officers and firefighters will lose their death and disability benefits if Prop 487 passes. So please, vote no on Prop 487 and educate your friends, family, and neighbors to also vote no on Proposition 487. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Steve. Next, I'd like to ask Andrew Morell if he has any closing remarks. Andrew, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the teachers, both the AEA and the National Education Association, both for a substantial financial commitment to the campaign, the work of your members when they're out knocking on doors and talking to their neighbors. You've been fantastic allies, even though this initiative does not affect teachers directly. We all recognize what the fallout could be for ASRS. And again, we thank you for being a fantastic partner in this campaign. And I'd like to leave it to you for a couple of closing remarks that you might have. Andrew? All right, I think we lost Andrew. But to our friends out there in AEA, there are several dozens, if not hundreds, of AEA members that have called in this evening. Thank you very much. At this time, our third speaker is Luis Schmidt, president of one of our two City of Phoenix Ask Me locals. And Luis, do you have anything that you want to leave us with this evening?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to get on this important call. Thank you to our friends from fire, from police, from the teachers union, from IUNA, everybody in this campaign. At the end of the day, you have to look around and who, they say you're known by the friends that you carry, the friends that you carry. And if you look at the people on the yes side, their friends, nobody knows their friends. Nobody knows where they come from. If you look at the no side, it's people like Tim Hill, Steve Berline. It's people that you know, people that you can see. We're plain people just like you. And at the end of the day, this is a grassroots effort where everybody, working families are sticking together. Whether you're a city employee or not, it's about sticking together for a common cause. We all live in a community that thrives because of public service and because of good budgets and good and good leadership. But if Proposition 487 passes, it's going to have disastrous consequences on our city. Whether you live in Phoenix or not, you will still be affected. A lot of our seniors come from around different parts of the valley to enjoy our senior centers. A lot of our pools, a couple of our pools are for handicapped, for our special needs pools. And those pools are used by people from all around the valley. And those pools are going to be affected if this proposition passes. This proposition is going to affect not only the taxpayers, but it'll affect everybody. Every type of public service that we rely on is going to be affected. The public safety puts, one day there are heroes, and the next day there are zeros, and that's not right. We value the service they provide. They put their lives on the line for us, and we need to protect them now. We're here to ask you to join us, to go to noon487.com if you need more information. But this grassroots campaign is only made possible by people knocking on doors, bearing the heat, bearing whatever weather is, so we can knock on doors, because together we can all protect the taxpayers. We can protect the $600 million savings that they just passed in 2013. We can protect the $230 million in the pension spiking that was eliminated. We can protect our city services, and at the very end, if not, it's one of the most important is protect our public safety. We've just seen the tragedies of public safety with the loss that we've had recently, and the other officers that were just shot 2 weeks ago. Public safety, they put their lives on the line on the spot. Anytime, every 24/7, they're there for us. We need to be there for them. We need to be there for the taxpayers. So let's keep the fight going. Let's keep knocking on doors, and let's vote no on Prop 487. And please talk to your neighbors, talk to anybody, and let them know that Prop 487 is bad for the entire community. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Louise, and thanks to everyone who's joined us on the call this evening. It's been a fantastic event. Unfortunately, in the time allotted, we couldn't get to every question. If you have additional questions, please stay on the line. You'll be able to leave a voicemail at the end of this call, and we'll get back to you. I just want to say to everyone again, thanks for your time. This is an incredibly important issue. It's been proven that when all of us act together, we can do tremendous things. So go out, vote, knock on doors, and let's get it done. Again, thank you for your time, and have a fantastic evening.